You're listening to All the Pieces, a podcast created to keep you informed. Now here's your host, Chief Quality Officer, Dr. Karan Mohan.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All the Pieces. I'm your host, Dr. Mohan, and today I have two very exciting guests with me who will talk about the unique partnership between University of Missouri Kansas City School of Medicine and Mosaic Life Care. Since 2020, roughly 67 students have been accepted into the Rural Track program, and 11 graduating students this year. This partnership and the future plans, which includes a building across the street from us here at Mosaic St. Joseph, are two guests that I'm excited to introduce. One is Dr. Alexander Norbash, the Dean of School of Medicine at UMKC, and Dr. Turner, the Chief Administrative Officer at Mosaic Life Care. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Usually I have my guests introduce themselves before, so Dr. Norbash, I'll start with you.
I very much appreciate the opportunity to participate, and our partnership with Mosaic, it's very powerful and very much cherished by the medical school. I grew up in Platte City, which is very close to here, and I decided to become a physician at an early age. My father was a physician and surgeon, and I myself attended the University of Missouri Kansas City, the 6-year program, and so I am an alumnus of the program and I know it well. I'm grateful to be in the position that I am as dean. I'm supposed to guarantee the academic mission, which means education and research and discovery. And I think we're doing a great job of that and trying to figure out unique partnerships that allow us to be better serving the citizens of Missouri on the whole. And this is emblematic of what we're doing. And I'd like to thank Dr. Turner. Without his partnership, none of this would have been possible. So thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Dr.
Yes, my name is Dr. Davin Turner. I am the Chief Administrative Officer here at Mosaic Life Care. I originally started with the organization in '96 as a family practice physician full-time and subsequently moved on into administration. The relationship we have with UMKC is a powerful symbol of how two entities can come together to cooperate to provide students in a rural healthcare setting with hopefully the goal of getting them to go into practice where they would continue to serve the population that is so needing of that medical care.
Excellent. So we know where we are now with this partnership, but how did it first start, Doctor?
So as you stated, the first class actually was inducted in 2020, in January of 2020. About 2 years prior to this coming to be, UMKC School of Medicine approached us and Missouri Western around where there could be collaboration in expanding UMKC School of Medicine to a rural healthcare track. From there, it snowballed, moved forward, and we were able to come together to say this benefits us both, the mission of providing primary care to rural Missouri, but also Mosaic, where we are really a rural healthcare provider serving northwest Missouri, parts of Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska. And so we felt as there would be great synergy. So we moved forward with this project. And as you already mentioned, this past December, I graduated 11 students, of which 2 more will graduate from this program, I believe, in May. So
Wow.
quite a fabulous experience.
Yeah. And Dr. Norbash, why Mosaic Life Care specifically?
I think Dr. Turner described it well. Mosaic's focus and concentration is on the rural citizenry of Missouri to a great degree. And at the inception of our school, that value was something that was intentionally stated. Our intent was to do exactly this, to serve the citizenry of Missouri, rural and urban, disenfranchised and enfranchised. And so this resonates in terms of what we choose to do and our identity. This is very, very important to us.
Excellent. So, Dr. Norbash, as a follow-up to that, can you describe the program exactly? What does Rural Track mean? How are the students chosen? And what makes the program different from the one in Kansas City?
What Rural Track means, it means that the students are situated here, are seated here for almost the entirety of their education. And there are instances where we do teleteaching from other locations, but the students are situated here not only in St. Joe, but also in the outlying areas that are connected through your clinics and through your affiliated hospitals. Mm-hmm. And so the students see at the ground level exactly what rural medicine is. They live it, they eat it, they breathe it. They're in that environment. And our intent is for those students, a disproportionate number, hopefully, to stay in rural serving locations, to see the lifestyle and see the benefits and see those unique relationships that can be had with patients and their families. And so we're very excited about the rural option in terms of getting into the smaller clinics, the more distant locations, as it becomes a more genuine experience. And in terms of how we choose the students, we look for maturity. They do have bachelor's degrees when they come here. And we look for individuals who are interested, either from having grown up in a rural location or for some other reason, a convincing and compelling reason for them to practice in a rural location. We also obviously are particularly interested in students who are drawn to primary care, because that really is the linchpin.
That is the hub with all the spokes, primary care in rural environments. What is the intention, Dr. Turner, with developing this program?
So even though I said 2 years prior we had started, years ago, Dr. Alan Brewer and Dr. Jimmy Durena had really saw an opportunity and wanted to explore possibly having a medical school in the region. St. Joe's last medical school went out of business in 1914, and then in 2020 we started this school. So the idea was set forth much earlier, but the intention was, how do we grow our own? We believe that if students train in a more rural setting, they will settle in a more rural setting. So the intention was to start there with the med school. The bigger intention is, can we get to graduate medical education, where after they've completed their 4 years of medical school and graduated, can we have residents here? Because we also know that if someone trains as a resident in an area, the chances that they will stay goes up dramatically. So that was really the intent around us moving forward with this, is how do we make sure the surrounding area around St. Joe, Northwest Missouri, and as I said, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, is supplied with physicians, and supplied with physicians that where they can get access where they're at, and that the theme that we continue to talk about is keep local care local. How can we make sure that folks don't have to drive an hour and a half just to see their primary care physician?
Right. So this is truly, this partnership, the beginning, the seedling of a much larger program to develop physicians in the community that live here, work here, take care of each other and their communities. Mm-hmm. With this, does that mean that we are a teaching hospital now?
It depends on how you want to define teaching hospital, but yes, you can say, yes, we are a teaching hospital. We are teaching students. We plan to then get into graduate medical education. We're starting more research here. You know, if you want to be a true academic medical center, would have the medical school completely attached to it, lots of research, but we are a teaching hospital. And I would say we have been a teaching hospital since I started here the end of 95, the beginning of 96. We've taken students as long as I have been here and trained them. What this is the next level of teaching to go to the next level.
Makes sense. And Dr. Norbash, from a medical student perspective, they're teaching outside of didactics. Are they rounding with physicians? Are they seeing patients?
There are several types of experiences that kind of constitute the medical school experience. As you pointed out, there are didactics. There are also group learning activities that they engage in, which is one of the reasons we're building an instructional building. Mm-hmm. And also there are clinical exposure opportunities where you're shadowing, or part of a group, shadowing a physician who is teaching you in an apprenticeship model. And so all of that is included on site in terms of the work that we're doing. So yes, that is an accurate statement.
Excellent. And I think, Dr. Turner, you mentioned that a medical building adjacent to the hospital. Can you expand on that, since there is a building being built right now?
So, as we've discussed, right across the street from the hospital, across Farron Street, an approximately 20,000 square foot medical school building is going up that will house not only lecture areas, study areas, I think sim centers. And that's going to be the initial foundation. Right next to that, on the corner of Riverside and Farron, will be a medical office building that will house primary care, along with multi-specialty, along with radiology lab, and that will be a 90,000 square foot building.
Wow.
That will support our physicians for space, but will also give access to those medical students that come over to work there. The other hope that I have heard from Dr. Wacker is he's trying to figure out how to get a pickleball court
I've heard about the rumors about the
Somewhere.
pickleball court.
nearby.
Fastest growing sport in America. It's like tennis light, but I find it very enjoyable. So, Dr. Norbash, this expansion with the medical school building, how do you think it's going to support the medical students' educational process?
Well, it's going to help us keep up with contemporary expectations of what medical students expect to see. And it also facilitates their learning. And what happens is curriculum over time has to adapt to changes in technology. So as an example, there are new things that are popping up all the time, whether it's artificial intelligence
Right.
or data science. And we have to figure out how to teach medical students new information. There are also new ways of teaching. Reversed classrooms, flipped classrooms, group learning, individual learning, learning in an asynchronous manner where you do it based on preserved information rather than a live didactic. And so this is one of those essential steps for us to keep up and even be maybe half a step ahead or a step ahead of what other places are doing in terms of the sophistication of the teaching methods they utilize to teach medical students. So it should result in better medical students, which results in a more satisfactory environment and a higher caliber of medical students applying. And so it's a positive cycle.
Yeah. What is reverse classroom? I've never heard of that.
A flipped classroom is when you have medical students or any kind of student work on a problem and to be prepared to discuss the problem when they come to class. And so it's not a matter of the teacher conveying information in a unidirectional fashion to people who are recipients. It's the recipients synthesizing information as an initial step, and teaching is the best way to learn. So
Right.
you're effectively trying to build a bunch of teachers.
Well, it sounds like this medical building is state of the art, and I remember it was way different from when I was in medical school. I spent many hours in the cadaver lab trying to find some random muscle. Speaking of cadavers, will there be a lab in the building?
That's a great question, because the solution to the cadaver question is emblematic of the ingenuity and the energy that people have generated in terms of formulating solutions. So Dr. Mike Wacker is actually our site-specific dean. He's the individual who's here on campus, and he's a basic scientist, and he's very well respected and highly regarded in his area of expertise, which has to do with cardiovascular physiology. And so he had a personal interest in formulating a solution where the dissections that have to take place are concerned. And it's a touchy subject because
Sure.
you have to respect the lives and respect the individuals, and it's something that's essential in terms of how we're educated in medical schools currently. And that's also changing. What we've done is Mike has formulated a partnership with Dr. Turner with Heaton Bowman Smith, a funeral home here that's local, and that's where the dissections take place, and they are the conservators of the individuals who've passed. So that's been very positive. As we look forward, just as you see technological advances in everything, there are technological advances taking place in how we learn anatomy. There is a table called an anatomage table, which is about the size of this table, and it is a touch screen. And you have embedded within it information about a dissection, and you do the dissection virtually by hand signals and using other tools that you can to rotate, expand, decrease, remove one system from another, and look at it separately, doing things you couldn't possibly do in real life. So we're very much pragmatic in terms of finding solutions for today. And on this campus also, we're looking to tomorrow and how we can innovate using the opportunities available to us.
Excellent. I'm very excited to see. What's the timeline of its completion, Dr. Turner?
The timeline of the completion for the med school, I don't want to steal this from Dr. Norbash, but I
You
believe
can answer that.
it's supposed to go live hopefully August, September
Yes, sir.
of this year. was the plan. It got off to a little bit of a rocky start as they had some stuff foundationally. They had to put in some extra footings. But once it started to go up, it is going up rapidly, and I believe that's kind of the timeline, August, September, to get the students in there.
Excellent. Dr. Norbash, it sounds like there's a massive amount of investment in this expansion, in this partnership. What else is on the horizon that you're excited about?
What we're excited about is what Dr. Turner just mentioned, is trying to create a continuum of education. So not just medical school, but internship and residency also happening. And the reason for that is if we have a medical student who's trained in the medical school here and they go to Illinois or Indiana or Ohio for a residency, they're very likely to remain in that location if they're particularly good and if they have a positive experience as a residency. So we want to also bridge that gap. We want to make sure that we have residencies here. We're starting off with primary care, but you can envision that at some point, we could start talking about a surgical residency, a psychiatry residency, OBGYN residency, internal medicine residency. So there are options for us in terms of growth. In the near term, we're very excited about starting a small residency in family medicine, but I think that's one of many, hopefully, optimistic future steps we're planning on taking.
Any barriers you anticipate to getting that thing launched, or any positive forces you think?
The positive forces are that the hospitals and the clinics that we're planning on embedding the residents in are extremely enthusiastic about this. Right. And they're very, very excited. They're looking forward to it. It's been a very positive experience, and everyone's been incredibly optimistic about this. Hopefully there won't be too many barriers as we deploy it.
Right. I envision there will be some, but hopefully not too many.
Well, and I would echo as Dr. Norbash kind of spoke to, we are starting we are going to have family practice residents starting most likely in 26, 27 in Maryville. The way that residency will work is it would be 2 students a year. Family practice residency is 2 years. Is a total of 3 years. They'll do their first year in Kansas City, and then they would do their next 2 years in Maryville. Those residents will also do some rotations here at this campus. A shout out to Maryville One, really, picking that up and wanting to go with it, and also a shout out to our facility in Albany, also wanting to make sure that they have a really good rural experience. So that's us dipping our toe in it. Some of the obstacles to this is really financial. There is a fair amount of cost to running a residency. In a more rural setting, the government has recognized this shortage, and they are putting money towards that through different grants and different other opportunities. We've had some great support from some of our legislators here in the state of Missouri. In fact, Representative Shields was instrumental, and then even Representative Graves on the federal level, in really assisting us and even being able to get the med school built across the way. But they're being champions for how can we fund this with that cost. And there's also a lot of talk on the federal level around how do we fund residencies in settings where we really haven't done that before, so that at least the facilities providing that service get closer to break even. We understand we're going to have to invest some dollars, and we expect that. But it has to be, as best it can be, a win-win, so that we can train these folks. But that's one of the big obstacles. Yeah. I think if we can get over that hurdle, we could start quite rapidly with a family practice, and even psychiatry would start pretty quickly.
Those two being the biggest needs in rural areas in general.
Mental primary care and behavioral health. Yeah. That is really, 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 really a need. It's a need nationally. That's true. But certainly here locally, that would very much help us.
Yeah, and I do want to give another shout out to Brenda Shields. She was at the graduating ceremony for the 11 graduating students, and she shared the podium with them, and she's been an instrumental part of the team in getting this over the line. this might seem like an obvious question, Dr. Turner, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit about the need for primary care and mental health needs, not just nationwide, but particularly in rural. What else do you see or anticipate being a bigger need as this program gets more expanded down the graduating medical education?
We are very fortunate that our physicians have embraced this and are teaching. But one of the needs I see, and we are very lucky because we have a young physician starting this fall who's actually trained in educating residents, but educating physicians to be good educators. As Dr. Norbash talked about in that reverse learning type setting, we all took an oath saying that we would give back and teach. However, we weren't really educated on how to teach. So I believe that all physicians, we have our own style and our own way. Many of our physicians have been recognized by the different medical schools and what great teachers they are. Dr. Angela Martin was recently recognized for what a wonderful teacher she is. But just being able to teach the physicians how to teach these new growing physicians, whether they're in medical school or in residency, I think that's going to be, something that's going to help us embrace and being able to produce better physicians.
I couldn't agree more. Dr. Norbash, this question is for you. For something this is new and exciting, how do you measure success? How do you define that this program has merits?
Well, I think we've demonstrated success already in terms of participation, enthusiasm, and people who really pitched in. And I want to echo your appreciation, Dr. Turner's appreciation for Brenda Shields. Yeah. Without Brenda's involvement, this wouldn't have happened either. So she has been absolutely foundational to this working. And so having the right partners in the legislature shows that this is the right problem that we're trying to solve, and this is the right method of approaching it. And I also want to thank the physicians at Mosaic who have embraced this. And that's a testament to their interest and their dedication and their willingness to try something a little bit different, because they didn't sign on to be professors of medicine, but yet they're being asked to do that, and they're doing so enthusiastically. And so that's something that I really appreciate. So I would say that measures of success include what we've already discussed in terms of students graduating and choosing to stay here because they do love it. Yeah. But also we need to make sure that the students perform at a high level. And I think you'll be impressed to hear that on the standardized examinations, the students have done exceptionally well. The students here have done exceptionally well. And then the other thing we're really looking for is an energized and an electric environment, to where there's an understanding that we're learning, we're teaching, because they two go hand in hand. We're innovating. All of a sudden now we're maybe doing clinical trials we otherwise wouldn't have done, because that goes along with the discovery mission of the medical school potentially. Mm-hmm. There are investigational things we're doing that put us ahead of the competition in a way that's really distinctive and brands us in a different way. So I would say the electricity, the vitality of the environment increasing, brand distinction, the retention of students and the return of students coming back here, and just having a greater amount of buzz and being able to do more with what you have. Those would be the measures that I'd be looking for.
Excellent. Are you seeing any downstream sort of effects, such as more applicants trying for the rural program, or anything that has created energy on your main campus?
I think the program's really new right now.
Mm-hmm.
We only have one graduated class, but even in this short period of time, there's been an incredible amount of enthusiasm and interest in the program. And a number of people will call me and contact me asking about our medical school. You'd be surprised about how many of them express an interest in rural care when they understand that we also have a rural medical school campus. Right. So it's a powerful draw. It's a positive draw. Not everybody wants to live in crowded, dirty cities anymore. Right.
They want to expand out and see their work in a different environment, because patients are everywhere. Right?
Well, I would like to, when you said that is one of the really cool things that came out of this. The vast majority of these students live local. Some that have come from the surrounding area may live in their hometown and commute if it's close enough for that. Mm-hmm. But they come here, they rent homes or buy homes,
Wow.
and they have roots here that is in itself something that would indicate there's a good chance they're going to want to come back, especially if they bought a home.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that here. That means good things for our community, because they become part of, they become part of our community, St. Joe, Savannah, the surrounding area, and when they're in Maryville, they become parts of Maryville. And when they go to we have a 1 month, I believe, rotation up there, a couple of months where they go up and they work with Dr. Martin in Albany. They stay there. They live in the community. That's very important.
Yeah.
And good for the community.
Less commuters, more livers, I guess.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Anything else for our listeners, Dr. Norbash, that you would like to get across that you think is meaningful, either about this program, this partnership, or things to look forward to?
I want the listening audience to understand and appreciate how innovative and ingenious this really is for Mosaic, and how it reflects very favorably on Mosaic. Because life is all about adaptation,
Right.
and experimentation, and understanding that nothing is perfect and everything improves over time. And this is a big step for Mosaic to take, to, as has been shared, that, you have become part of a teaching system and you are a teaching hospital, because it has become one of your core competencies and something that's really relied on. And that translates into better medical care for the patients, a more wholesome environment, a more positive environment for the physicians who work here. And so I celebrate and I thank Mosaic for taking this giant step in partnership with us.
Yeah, thank you. And access to care for the patients, really, right? Dr. Turner?
The one thing I would probably talk about is that we didn't speak on was the investment UMKC made. They have hired an individual that really their sole purpose is to try to recruit students to go into medical school. We sponsor a AHEC program that really exposes high school students to the different, allied health, medical health fields. But UMKC has put their money where their mouth is. How can they work with Missouri Western, Northwest, North Central to recruit those students, not when they're seniors, but early on in their college career, to make them more better applicants, to get them to see what we need to do to prepare to make me a competitive applicant, but then that also recruits them to come back here and go to school. So that has been a great investment that University of Missouri Kansas City has done, that I believe helps us, because in the original class we've had great students every year, but when you looked up the makeup and where they came from, you were like, well, they weren't from Northwest, or they weren't from Missouri Western, or they weren't from here. Now you look at the students and they may not necessarily be from there, but they grew up in Stewartsville. Right. They grew up local, Savannah, or they went to those schools that we have great affiliation with, Missouri Western, Northwest, Truman, that is in a more rural setting. So they're doing a really good job of making sure to recruit those students that have interest and getting the word out that we want you to come here. Let us help you to, again, be a more competitive candidate, because if they help them, even if, say, they go to one of the other medical schools, they still know they received help from not only UMKC but ourselves.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Well, I certainly learned a lot about this partnership. Having interacted with students is one thing, and teaching them is one thing, but learning it from the planning side of things and how long it took to get it off the ground has been particularly insightful for me. I would like to thank you, Dr. Norbash and Dr. Turner, for being a part of this. And for our listeners out there, just know that this partnership is not a win for Mosaic or a win for UMKC, but truly it's a win for the communities at large, because rural health is the future. And
go Chiefs!
There we go.
There we go.
And depending on when this thing gets published, we would have won it. So let's see. But in any case, if you have any questions about this program, please feel free to reach out to myself or Dr. Wacker. I'm kind of throwing him under the bus here a little bit, to learn more about how this partnership can help the community at large. So With that, we'll wrap up, and I'll see you next time, folks. Take care. Brush your hair.